Okay, you guys, so we were not able to finish our PowerPoint today, and so I wanted to make this recording for you so that you had the chance to see me demonstrate some of these problems that you will be seeing on your test. So we are going to be going over slope, finding the slope or rate from a graph, graphing lines using intercept or table of values, write an equation given graph, points, and intercept, identify an equation in standard form, convert from standard form to slope-intercept form, identify and plot x and y intercepts, and compare rates on a graph. So we did this in class, but I would like to review it again. A slope is a ratio. Please don't ever put it as a point. A slope is just a number or a fraction that represents how things are changing. So in this situation, I have put time and ice cream cones. And the slope of this graph is 25 halves or 12.5. Okay, that means the rate at which ice cream cones are being produced is 25 after 2 hours. So if you look right here after 2 hours, excuse me, right here, 2 hours, it's going to be clear up here on 25. But if you look after 1 hour, it's right here at 12.5, okay? So after 1 hour, 12.5 cones are being produced. After the second hour, another 12.5 cones are going to be produced. So that's what a slope represents. It represents how something is changing, and a graph is just a physical representation of that, so you can see what is happening. To find the slope, we find the change in the y values, the change in the x values, and we divide those changes by each other. So we're going to take the change in the y values and put that in the numerator and divide it by the change in the x values. That goes in the denominator or on bottom. So if you're ever given 2 points or a graph that has 2 points on it, here's how you'll do it. You'll say to yourself, okay, we're starting at 2, we're ending at 6. Those are my y values, 2 and 6. The change from 2 to 6 is a change of 4. The change from our x values, from 1 to negative 2, if you think of a number line, here's 0, here's 1, here's negative 2. If I'm starting here at 1 and I end at negative 2, that means I've moved negative 3. See that? 1, 2, 3 in the negative direction. So that means the change in my x values are negative 3. So there's my slope. 4 over negative 3. So here's an example of when they're asking you to find the slope of a line passing through 2 points, but they don't give you the name of the points. Well, luckily, it's pretty easy for us to see that there's a point right here at 6 in the x direction and 2 in the y direction. That's its home address. There's a point right here, 0 in the x direction and 4 in the y direction. And there's a point right here, negative 6 in the x direction and 6 in the y direction. Now, please put this in your notes. In order to find the slope, you only need 2 points. 3 points is great, but you only need 2 points, okay? So just choose whichever 2 you'd like to use. Let's go ahead and use 0 and 4. And 6 and 2. The reason you only need 2 points is because the rate at which this line is changing from the first point to the second point is the same rate at which it's changing from the second point to the third point. This is like you're skiing down a hill that has the same slope the whole time, okay? No matter whether you're skiing down right here, or right here, or right here, you're going to be traveling the same speed because the slope is the same. So the 2 points that I have chosen to use are 0, 4, and 6, 2. So we just need to find the change. Remember, we moved from left to right in math. So we're going to start with this 4, and we're going to find how it changes to get to 2. Those are my y values. So I need to find the change in my y values. So if I'm starting at 4 in the y direction and ending it with 2 in the y direction, that means I've gone down. That means I've made a negative change of 2. From 4 to 2 means I've gone down 2. And you can see right here on the graph, I'll do this in orange, if I started here and I ended here, notice I've gone down from 4 to 2. Okay, that was a drop of 2. Next, I'm going to find the change in my x value. So I'm going to start at this first point again, start at 0, and I end at 6. So if I start at 0 and I end at 6, that means I had a positive change of 6. So let's look at how that looks on the graph again in orange. So I'm starting at this point right here, and I'm traveling over until I get to this point, and that's going to be a distance of 6. You can see that down here as well. And this is what we call our rise and our run, okay? So for those of you who have heard rise over run before, this is what it means. It means that my rise is going down to, so I'm actually falling, I'm not rising, I'm falling from this point to the next point, and then I'm running in the positive x direction 6, and you can count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? So my rise is -2, my run is +6. That's the same thing as saying the change in my y values is -2, the change in my x values is 6. You're going to end up with the same answer either way. If you want, you can leave it like this, but on your assessment, you'll probably want to simplify it. So, oh, I didn't mean to erase all that. Let's go ahead and mark those points again. Our rise was -2, our run was +6. And that simplifies to be -1/3, okay? So that's what it is in a fraction. So if you're ever given a graph and there's no numbers and you're freaking out, just go ahead and label these points. Tell me what their home address is. As soon as you can identify what their points are, it becomes very easy, okay? Make sure that you list the x values first. It will make your lives much easier. All right, so sometimes we have to create a graph when we're given an equation. So now we're working backwards. And this, in the slide just before this, that we were given a graph and we had to identify its slope. In this situation, we're going to be given an equation and we need to graph it. Don't be scared. When in doubt, try it on your own and then go to Desmos. Desmos.com is a graphing calculator. You can go there and plug in this equation, y equals -2x plus 6, and it will show you what the graph is supposed to look like. Now, I don't want you to do this very first thing. You need to know how to do this on your own. But I want to show you that this is fairly easy to check your answers and learn from. There's two methods to graphing an equation. Option 1 is to find the x and the y intercepts. When you find your x and your y intercepts, just like on the screen here, find your x-intercept, you plot that point, find your y-intercept, you plot that point, and then you just draw your line through those. Remember, we only need 2 points to draw a line. We only need 2 points to find the slope. 2 points is kind of the key number. So, as long as you can find your x-intercept and your y-intercept, and they're different, this is a good way to do it. So here's an example of where our y-intercept is and our x-intercept. Remember, the value for y for all x-intercepts is 0. See that? Here's all my x-intercepts. The y value is 0. Here's my y-intercept. The x value is 0. So it's very easy to find your x and your y-intercepts. It's easy to find them because all you have to do is substitution. Remember, substitution is the single most useful tool in algebra, and if you know how to do it, you can do a lot. So these are key points that you really should write down in your notes. If you want to find an x-intercept, you substitute for y and you solve for x. If you want to find a y-intercept, you substitute 0 in for x and you solve for y. I'm going to demonstrate how to do that. Okay, so ignore this top part for just a second. Down here in the bottom, I'm going to show you how to do that. If I had an equation, y equals 6x plus 4, and I wanted to know what the y-intercept was, I would plug a 0 in for x. So I rewrite my equation, but instead of writing an x, I would write a 0. Y equals 6 times 0, which is 0, plus 4. Y equals 4. So your y-intercept for this equation would be 4. Now, if you wanted to find your x-intercept, you just do the opposite. If you wanted to find your x-intercept, you would rewrite your equation, but you would plug a 0 in for y, okay? That's where you're going to put your 0 this time. Put your 0 in for y. So 0 equals 6 times x plus 4. Now this is a little bit trickier because notice when I solved this one right here, it came out to be y equals 4. It was pretty easy. Here, we don't have a plain x equals something. We need to solve for x, okay? So that's the only thing that's a little bit more complicated about finding an x-intercept is you need to solve for the x. And you should remember how to do this using information from Unit 2. If you don't remember, go back and look for it. To get x alone, to solve for x, we need to isolate that x, which means we need to get rid of everything around it. So I'm going to subtract a 4 from both sides because I don't want that plus 4. I want to get rid of it. So I'll have negative 4 equals 6x. Now I have a 6 times an x. Well, I don't want that 6x. I want the x to be all by itself. So I'm going to undo multiplication by using division. And I'm going to divide both sides by 6. So 6x divided by 6 leaves me with x equals negative 4 sixths. And if you want to simplify that, x would equal negative 2 thirds. Okay, so there is how you find your x-intercept. That's going to be negative 2 thirds. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and split this screen and show you option 2. Sometimes when you're trying to find your x and your y-intercepts, it becomes tricky if they're the same answer. If you plug in a 0 for x and you get 0, and you plug in a 0 for y and you get 0, that means that your y and your x-intercepts are the same. And that means you don't have enough information to graph. So if you have a graph or an equation where the x and the y-intercepts are the same, we need to do something else. We need to graph it by finding 2 points. We need to find 2 points because we know that the x and the y-intercept only gives us 1 point. So if we plug in, let's say we have the equation y equals 2x. If I plug in, let's just try to find the x and the y-intercept, okay? Let's go ahead and plug in a 0 for x. So y equals 2 times 0. That means y equals 2 times 0, which is 0. Okay, so my y-intercept is 0. Let's try finding my x-intercept by plugging a 0 in for y. 0 equals 2 times x. Well, if I divide both sides by 2, I'm going to get x equals 0 divided by 2, which is still 0. Okay, so now my x-intercept is 0. So that means my graph crosses at the origin. Okay, so that means when x is 0, y is 0. When y is 0, x is 0. Okay, so that only gives me 1 point, and that's not enough information. So here's the glory of math. When you're given an equation, it contains all of the infinite points that a line has. Remember, a line is a collection of infinite points. So I could choose any value for x, and I could get an answer out for y, okay? I could choose any number I wanted for x, and I would be able to find out what that point was. So I want to know, let's just say I plug 1 in for x. All I have to do is solve y using substitution. Y equals 2 times, let's substitute 1 in there, okay? Y equals 2 times 1. So now, by substituting a 1 in for x, I'm going to be able to solve and find out what my y coordinate is of that point. And finding out what the y value is of the point. That's the whole point. So y equals 2 times 1. Well, 2 times 1 is just 2. So that means when I plug in a 1 into my equation, I'm going to get a 2 out for y. And that means the point 1, 2 is on my graph. Let's try a negative. Let's say I plug in -4. And remember, you can choose any numbers you want, and that's the great thing about using a table to graph, is you can choose any numbers you want. So let's take our equation y equals 2x, and I want to substitute a -4 in for x. So I know that my y value is going to be 2 times -4. Well, 2 times -4 is -8. So that means when I plug a -4 in for x, when I substitute -4 into my equation, I'm going to get -8 out, which means the point -4, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 8 exists on my graph. There we go. Now we have more points than we need, and that's okay right here. I'm just going to draw a line through those points, and I don't have a straight line tool right now, so it's going to be a little off. I didn't mean to do that there at the end. Okay, and that cleared it all. Dang it. So by simply plugging in numbers for x and y, I can find out the points that I need to graph. So I know I have a point at 0, 0. I know I have a point at 1 and 2. I know I have a point at -4 and -8. And if you need to rewind this recording so you can find the work we did on the board, you're welcome to. So that's option 2. That's how to graph a line when you cannot find the x and the y intercept, or if they're the same thing. And I really like this method. You seriously use this method all through math. Okay, so what is the graph representing? You may need to explain this. It's just as every x value increases by 1, the y value is something by something. So it's either you're gonna have 2 options here. The y value is either going to be increasing or it's going to be decreasing. And it's going to be decreasing by a certain amount. In our equation y equals 1/2 x, you can kind of see if we make a table right here. When x is 0, y is 0. When x is 1, y is 1/2. When x is 2, y is 1. When x is, you know what, let's go ahead and actually do y equals 2x, since that's what we were dealing with, okay? So here's our graph, here's our table. Here's my x values, here's my y values. When x was 0, y was 0. When x was 1, y was 2. When x was 2, y was 4. When x was 3, y is 6. And I know that because I can just plug in 1 into my equation. 1 times 2 is 2. I can plug 2 into my equation. 2 times 2 is 4. I can plug 3 into my equation. 3 times 2 is 6. So as every x value is increasing by 1, every y value looks like increasing by 2. And that's what the slope means in this situation. The slope of 2 means that every time my x value increases by 1, my y value is going to be double that. So I could do this for knowing that my rule. I could say, okay, well, what about when x is 10? Well, I know that my rule is doubling. So if x is 10, y is going to be 20. If x was 50, y would be 100 because I know that my slope is 2, and that means my y values are double my x values. So if you need help with standard form and converting standard form to slope-intercept form, which I know all of you do, I need you to go to playposit.com. And those of you who are new, I need you to do this for sure. So go to www.playposit.com. That's right here. You need to, if you are new, you need to create an account using your school email address. If my name was Abigail, my school email address would probably be, let's say my name is Abigail Johnson. It would probably be like A Johnson 1234 at Utah. Oh my gosh, Utah. Let's pretend that says Utah. At utahvirtual.org. It's really easy to find your school email address. You just click on your email within the OMS, the online middle school. You just click on your email address and then you click on the little person icon and it's going to show you what your email is, okay? So you're going to go to playposit.com. You're going to create an account using your school email address and make sure that whatever password you use, you should probably just make Playposit your password, okay? Playposit would be a good password. And then you're going to add to my class by typing in the code T178CC. And if you do that, then all of a sudden you're going to see this Playposit video that I have made about slope-intercept form and standard form. And it is so, so important that you watch this because it covers a lot of really good information that I guarantee you will be on your test. So you're going to watch the video converting standard to slope-intercept form and answer the questions. That's really going to help prepare you for the test. Even if you've watched it before, I've adjusted some of the answers so that you can actually type them in this time, and it'll be a really good review. So please take the time to watch this. Okay, so now we need to talk about writing an equation given 2 points. So the easiest way to do this is to write it in slope-intercept form. If you don't remember what slope-intercept form is, stop this video, go watch the other Playposit, and then watch this one, okay? So y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. So step 1 is to identify the y-intercept. Well, that's obvious. It's just where the line crosses the y-axis. So this is crossing right here at the point 2. Now you need to identify the slope using 2 points. Hey, we already know how to do that. We learned it before. Here's the point -2 and 4. Here's the point 3 and -2. The change in the y values from 4 to -2. If you don't know it already, think of what? 4 to -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11. Excuse me, I was counting spaces, my bad. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's a movement of -6, so that's the change in your y direction. And the change in your x direction from -2 to 3, that's a positive change of 5. So there's your slope, -6/5. So now I can write that right here, -6/5. Well, now it's easy. The y-intercept is the b value in your equation. The slope is the m value in your equation. So here's the magic trick of substitution. Write the equation y equals mx plus b. Just write it down on your paper. Y equals m times x plus b. Then I want you to delete. I wish there was a better erase tool on this thing. And I want you to delete the m and put in its place your actual slope, which is negative 6/5. And then I want you to delete the b. Go ahead and erase that out of there. And in its place, I want you to write 2, because that's your y-intercept. And bam, there's your equation. Bam, paper towels, you're done. Step 1, identify the y-intercept. Right here, pretty easy. Step 2, identify the slope by finding the change in the y values divided by the change in the x values. Then you just substitute. Just put the slope in for m and put the y-intercept for b. Just delete those two, put the numbers in, leave this y and the x right here. Don't touch them, don't mess with them. You need them there. They represent all the x and the y coordinates in the universe, so you don't want to mess with them. And there's your equation. So once you understand how simple this is, and if you can memorize slope-intercept form equation, be sure you write that down in your notes right here. Let me get, I wish I had more fun colors. Right here, y equals mx plus b. M equals your slope. B equals your y-intercept. If you can remember those two things, those three things, the equation and what the heck the variables stand for, then it's pretty dang easy to identify your y-intercept and your slope and just substitute them into your equation. Please remember, when you find a problem that is asking you to compare rates, remind yourself what is happening to the line, the y values, as the x values increase, okay? So pretend I am walking across the x-axis. In this situation, as I'm walking across the x-axis, my line is increasing. So this is going to be a positive or increasing slope. All right, in this next one, as I'm walking along my x-axis, what's happening to my line and my y values? They're dropping. They're decreasing. That's a decreasing or a negative slope. Right here, as I'm walking along my x values and as I'm getting bigger, what's happening to my y values? Nothing. That means I have a zero slope. Zero slope, because nothing is happening. Here, just by looking at it, this is a sheer cliff. This is no longer a slope. You cannot ski on this. You can ski on this slope. You can ski on this slope. You can try and ski on this slope. On this slope, you cannot. You are falling off of a cliff. So this is a really good way to remember that this is just an undefined slope. You may see a problem like this. We went over this on Tuesday. Determine whether relationship A or relationship B has the greater rate. Well, which one is increasing at a faster rate? Which one has a slope that is steeper? Okay, we can see that both of these, as we move along our x value, both of these are increasing. Okay, both of them are going up. I want to know which one is going up faster. Obviously, relationship A is going up faster. So A has a greater rate of change because that graph increases faster. You could also write because that graph has a greater slope. All right, you guys. We are done. Please make sure that you complete any missing Unit 3 quizzes or assignments that you have. Email me for more resources. If you are new, it will not hurt you to do this stuff because it is going to really help you with our next unit. All right, you guys, I hope that you learned something. Have an awesome day. Remember, Thursday is your unit test part 1. That's going to be lesson 3.13. And on Friday is going to be 3.13 part 2. Good luck. Have an awesome day.